Episode 1: The Grand Illusion. In a small, quiet village tucked away in the mountains, there lived a young man named Kai. By trade, he was a blacksmith, but in his mind, he was a creator of legends. Kai possessed a soul of fire, unyielding and intense. He looked at the simple hoes and knives in his shop with disdain. To Kai, these were mere tools for the common. His true destiny, he believed, was to forge a divine sword, a blade so pure and powerful that it could slice through the very fabric of the spirit world. He spent his nights staring into the cold embers of his forge, mesmerized by the image of a masterpiece that didn't yet exist. Episode 2: The Trap of Talking. Every morning, Kai could be found at the village tea house, surrounded by a crowd of curious listeners. With grand gestures and a voice full of conviction, he painted vivid pictures of his future glory. He spoke of the rare ores he would find, the secret forging techniques he would master, and the songs that would be sung of his name. The more Kai spoke, the more the villagers' admiration fueled his ego. In his mind, the cheers and the nods of the crowd felt like real achievement. His brain, tricked by the social reward, began to feel as if the divine sword was already half finished, even though his forge remained silent and his hammer untouched. Kai was becoming drunk on his own potential, lost in the dangerous high of a dreamer who had forgotten how to be a worker. Episode 3: The Rust of Inaction. As weeks turned into months, a silent enemy began to take over Kai's workshop: the rust. While Kai was busy polishing his words at the tea house, the high-quality iron he had bought with his savings began to decay. Each reddish flake of rust was a physical mark of a wasted day. The fire in his forge had long since died, leaving behind only cold, gray ash that felt like a graveyard of his ambitions. Kai noticed the rust, but instead of picking up his hammer, he turned his eyes away. The gap between his perfect dream and the ugly reality of the rusted iron had become too painful to face. He realized that while dreams can grow in the mind without effort, reality requires heat, sweat, and friction. Without them, even the strongest iron and the greatest potential will eventually crumble into nothingness. Episode 4: The Shadow of Perfection. It was not laziness that truly bound Kai's hands. It was a deeper, more paralyzing fear, the fear of imperfection. In his mind, the divine sword was already a masterpiece of light and balance, a weapon worthy of gods. But when he looked at his hammer and the ugly, rusted iron, he saw only failure. He knew that the moment he struck the first blow, his perfect dream would be forced to meet the messy reality of being a beginner again. He was terrified of the noise, the sweat, the burnt skin, and the inevitable mistakes that come with creation. So, he built a wall of excuses to protect his ego. He told himself, "Today is too hot, the sweat will ruin the grip," or, "I must study more ancient texts before I can begin." By setting a standard of impossible perfection, Kai had created a shadow that kept him trapped in the comfort of inaction, too afraid to start because he was too afraid to fail. Episode 5: The Silent Master. One afternoon, as Kai was holding court at the tea house, an old man entered. His clothes were worn, and his hands were calloused, but his eyes held the stillness of a deep lake. This was Master Ren, a legendary swordsmith who had long retired into silence. While the villagers cheered for Kai's vivid descriptions of his divine sword, Master Ren stood in the corner, watching without a word. Eventually, he stepped forward and broke the noise with a simple request. "Young man, my kitchen knife is broken. Can you forge me a new one by tomorrow?" Kai looked at the old man's weathered face and let out a dismissive laugh. "Old father," Kai said arrogantly, "I am a creator of legends, a shaper of destiny. I do not waste my energy on common kitchen knives. My talent is reserved for the divine sword alone." The master didn't look offended. Instead, his gaze grew sharper, cutting through Kai's pride like a blade through silk. Episode 6: The painful truth. Master Ren did not raise his voice. Instead, he simply asked, "Then show it to me. Show me this divine sword that is more important than a simple act of service." A heavy silence fell over the tea house. Kai hesitated, his heart pounding against his ribs like a trapped bird. He led the old man to his workshop, a place he hadn't truly worked in for months. When he threw open the doors, the golden sunlight poured in, mercilessly revealing the truth. There was no legendary blade. There was only a pile of red, flaky rust eating away at cold iron, and a forge filled with the gray ash of forgotten fires. Kai felt a wave of burning shame. "It is perfect, in my mind," he whispered, his voice trembling. The master stepped closer, picking up a handful of the rust and letting it fall through his fingers like sand. "A dream that stays in your mind is not a masterpiece," the master said coldly. "It is a ghost. You are not a blacksmith, Kai. You are just a man who is in love with the idea of being one, while you let the reality rot right in front of you." Episode 7. Smoke versus Fire. Master Ren's voice was calm, but his words carried the heat of a furnace. He looked at Kai and said, "Ambition is like smoke, Kai. It rises high, it looks grand, and it can be seen from miles away. It catches the attention of everyone, making them believe there is a great fire beneath. But smoke has no substance. It cannot warm a frozen body, and it certainly cannot shape iron. It is merely the ghost of a fire that was never truly lit." He stepped closer to the cold, ash-filled forge. Action, however, is the fire. Fire is small at first. It is messy. It creates soot that stains your face, and it demands constant feeding and sweat. It is not as pretty as smoke, but fire is the only thing with the power to transform. You have spent your life chasing the smoke of your own praise because you were afraid of the heat of the actual flame. If you want to be a blacksmith, stop looking at the sky where your words drift away. Look at the coal. Look at the hammer. Until you are willing to be burned by the reality of the work, you will always be a man whose only achievement is a throat full of gray ash. Episode 8. Killing the Dreamer. After the master left, the workshop felt colder than ever, but for the first time, Kai didn't run away. He stood alone in the dark, looking at the rusted iron that he once despised. He realized that to save the blacksmith, he had to kill the dreamer. He had to destroy the version of himself that was too perfect to start, too important to sweat, and too proud to fail. With a trembling hand, Kai picked up his heavy hammer. It felt foreign and heavy, a painful reminder of his months of laziness. He didn't reach for the gold or the legendary ores. Instead, he grabbed a piece of scrap metal, ugly and full of rust. His first strike was weak, his second was clumsy. He missed the center, his muscles ached, and the soot began to blacken his face. There was no glory in this moment, no audience to cheer him on. But as the hammer hit the metal, the sound of the strike drowned out the hollow voices of his ego. Kai was no longer a creator of legends in his head. He was finally just a man, sweating in the dark, willing to be an ugly beginner. Episode 9. The Power of Small Steps. Kai stopped visiting the tea house. He stopped promising miracles. Instead, he made a vow to the silence of his workshop, to forge one single nail every morning. To the world, a nail was insignificant, but to Kai, it was a battle against his old self. On the first day, the nail was crooked and brittle. On the second, it was better. Kai focused all his energy not on a divine sword, but on the heat of the coal and the angle of his strike for that one small nail. He learned to value the quiet sweat of the dawn more than the loud praise of the evening. Day after day, the repetitive rhythm of the hammer built something more than just metal. It built internal momentum. His muscles grew lean and hard. His focus became sharp like a blade, and his discipline became an unbreakable habit. He realized that the mountain is not climbed by staring at the peak, but by focusing on the single step right in front of you. By mastering the small, the great was slowly beginning to take shape on its own. Episode 10: Mastery is a Path. Years later, Kai's hands were no longer soft. They were a map of scars and strength. He never did forge the divine sword he once boasted about, but he achieved something far greater. He became the village's true master blacksmith, the man who could shape any metal with a single, focused strike. One day, a young, ambitious boy came to his forge, speaking loudly of his grand plans to become a legend. Kai simply smiled and handed him a hammer. "The path to greatness is not found in the clouds of your imagination," Kai said softly. "It is found in the dirt, the sweat, and the repetition of the work you find boring today. Mastery is not a destination you reach, it is a path you walk, one strike at a time. Stop looking for motivation, for it is a fickle friend. Trust only in your commitment, for the sword that waits for perfect conditions will never leave its sheath, but the hammer that strikes every day will eventually shape the world."